For extra practice, let's make another drawing in Google SketchUp. Over here on the right side, it says drawing practice, and I'm going to guide through what I'm doing along with each step. So first, let's get the picture. Go ahead and type in pixel question block for a Google search. You can type it down here too. And make sure that everything's spelled exactly the same way that I have it spelled. Because if you don't, you will get different Google results than I do. If you need a little extra time to type that in, pause the video, but I'm moving forward. Now I have my image results that are previewed, but I'm still viewing this under all. So in Google, in our results, click on images, and we'll go with this top left one that is labeled as Pixel Mario question mark block. Now this is a smaller thumbnail preview version of the image, so click on it so that it gets a little bit larger. And now while you're here, if you're using a Mac computer, do a control click. If you're using a PC, do a right click and choose Open Image in New Tab. It's right here. You should be able to pause and kind of see where it's selected blue. So we're still in the Getting Picture step. Now if you'll notice, this brought up a new tab, so I'm going to click on the new tab in Chrome. And I have a much larger version than I did a second ago. So make sure you're looking at the larger version after you've opened it in a new window. Because this is a PNG and not like a web page or something like that, that means it's an image file. And I can see my desktop right here. So I'm going to click and drag to drop my picture onto my desktop. Now for you, this might be a little different, but I can see this because of the way I have my window set up. You might not be able to. You might be looking at a window that's this large. So we're still in the Getting Picture stage, so I'll show you what I mean in just another moment. So now we need to insert that picture into SketchUp. To make that happen, let's first get a new SketchUp window. I added the plus sign to open up a new blank tab, and I'm going to go to the waffle here using a two-fingered scroll or the scroll wheel here. I'm going to go down and choose SketchUp. If you get prompted for something like this, I don't care to open the last file I was working on. And I'll click on Create New. If your window is over a bit, or if you are in full screen, I definitely want you to back out of full screen. So if your window is over a little bit, click it and tuck it up to the corner so that this area is as high up to the top left as possible. And then I also want you to do a click and drag down here so that your window is as large as possible without being in full screen. The reason for that is so that if you click on some of these buttons, they won't be obscured or hidden because your window is of a different size. Mine floats, but sometimes people get theirs to where it's tucked or hidden entirely. All right, the only reason I'm going to keep mine smaller, you're not, is so that I can see this yellow display so that you guys can follow along. Let's get rid of this guy by clicking on him using the select tool, and then we can just hit the delete key on our keyboard. You could also use the erase tool, but that's kind of a little bit slower for me. To get the picture into SketchUp, you'll have to move your window over to where you can see your desktop. And then you're going to do a click and drag of this picture. And you'll choose image when you're given those two choices. Now, even though nothing happens, don't panic. Move your cursor a little bit. And you'll notice that it's a little bit lagging. That's okay. your first click is going to place the picture on the origin, while your second click is going to make it larger. If for some reason it doesn't let you do that, you might have to do it a different way. So that different way will be to go to the 3 lines here and choose Insert, and then from Google Drive or your computer, you wouldn't want to choose either of those because you can just now drag and drop the image right on there. And then you should be able to click Image and go through the same process. Go ahead and drop that image there. Now if we want to keep our computers clean, we can drag this to the trash. We won't really need that anymore. Sometimes it's nice to back it up. And then you want to tuck your window back to where you had it. And again, I'm going to resize my video, but I'm only to resize my window only because I want it to be clear for you. So we've inserted that picture into SketchUp, and now let's save to Google Drive. You know, it would be a bummer to lose this work, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. So if I click here into my window, I'm going to click Save. And since it doesn't have a name yet, we can double click on Untitled to replace it with Question Block. Pause the video if you need to catch up with typing that. I'll click OK. And then I'm going to do a double click on the desired technology folder. I'll put this into my second period. That doesn't mean that you were in my second. And then I'm going to choose SketchUp of these choices. But if I double click in it, I'm going to have to back up because you'll notice that I can't choose the select tool. So again, you'll do a double click on technology and then a single click on SketchUp and then choose select. Now, even though you have it saved to Google Drive, I'd like you to jump back into your folders, look in your technology folder, and just verify that this has saved in there. So again, I opened up my drive, my technology folder, and SketchUp, either by single clicks here on the left side or by double clicks in this region. So yeah, we're saved, and there's the 8:44 a.m., which matches up with just a moment ago. Now, by this point, you probably figured out that clicking O will help you orbit. And if I do a 2-fingered scroll zooming out, I can zoom in here. Now, as far as planning goes, I'm not going to be super detailed on this one. I don't think I'd like to see those itty-bitty boxes in the corner. So I'm going to have a box here, a box on the inside, and then I'm going to scribble this just so you can see what I'm talking about. And then not 2, but maybe just 1 question blocks here. I'm sorry, I said not 2, but I'll probably just do the 1. I'll just go with the kind of like lighter. I'll call that orange, I guess. Orangish red. And we also won't do this picture border. So now let's start tracing. And so that I'm more specific, we're going to trace the outer box. I'm zoomed in to a reasonable distance. I'm zoomed out. And I'm looking for this line to be red, and when I'm happy with the accuracy of it, I'll click. Now I'm moving up in this direction. And I'm moving all the way over here, but you'll notice that it automatically suggests from point for me, which is great. But let's say it didn't. I could go and gently tag that, and then work my way up at a decent angle so that it doesn't go too far astray. So I've got my outer box traced. Now I want to keep this box, but I still need to work on the next stages. So this location is going to become my final project, and then over here I'm going to build separate parts of it that I'll later bring back to here. So I'm going to copy and paste this whole guy. And the way that I was able to make that happen so quickly is using my select tool, I've just clicked somewhere, and I'm doing Command A, Command C, Command V. So A for all, because it grabs the whole thing, C for copy, and V for paste. Now over here, now that I've done this, I'll go ahead and I'll push this shape up just a little bit. I'm going to erase the single line, maybe over here. And I could get really accurate by using like the offset tool, but I think that'll be a bit confusing for some people right now. So I'm going to go and I'm going to build this inside box. And if you notice, this inside box isn't really connected to any of my black outer border that I've drawn here. So I'm going to just draw this as freestanding. I think I like where that points at. I'm zooming out. Hopefully you're pausing this to get caught up, jumping around a little bit. Now at this point I can tag and bring back, and here I go. But now comes the challenging part of moving this box over. And because it's freestanding, I have a different issue. Unlike some of the past drawings we've made, where I could pick something up and match it up, I don't have a point to match it up with. So if I try to do this by eyeballing it, you can see how I'm totally far off, and I did that on purpose. And yeah, you could try to finagle it or try to fix it, but it's really just not super clean. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to click the select tool to make sure you don't have anything chosen, and then choose only this box. I'm going to move this inside box. So now we've already traced the inside box, and we're now going to have to kind of relocate it. So let's take this whole chunk and let's copy it and paste it over. Command C, Command V. But notice I couldn't do Command A, Command C, Command V, because maybe I don't need this whole chunk twice. So I'm just doing a select tool, and I'm making sure I grab that whole region, copy it, and I paste it over. So I'm going to move this object by selecting it, clicking the M for move, or I can use the tool here for move. Now I don't want to move it from here. I want to move it from this endpoint, which matches up with that same endpoint here. So I'll pick it up from this corner, and I'll drag it, and I'll dump it. And that looks very, very clean. These lines don't serve any purpose for me, so I'll clean it up as I go. And now I'm going to move on to the question block, where the actual question mark is. Now they give it this, three-dimensional look by having a shadow behind it. I'm going to zoom in. And start tracing the question block. Now I don't have a point to snap to yet, so I'm just drawing as I go. But when I come back here, it looks like this corner and endpoint might be the same here. This could possibly be the dead middle of it, but when I bring it back, that's a little too far, so I'm going to have to scale back. Now you can repeat anything I say by just jumping back if that's confusing at all. Similarly here, maybe I think I'll be able to connect that, but I can't. So I just keep on drawing. This endpoint matches up. That endpoint matches up. And notice that I'm clicking kind of quickly, but I am zooming in accurately. And I'm trying to grab points wherever possible. Because sometimes in this angled point of view, this angled perspective, you have points that you don't even realize you have. So there's my question blocks. And now it looks really 3D, even though it's just still flat on that surface. To keep this from being just floating, which it is, I'm going to choose this endpoint and go from that point before I make my next click. Okay, now that's kind of accurate, but that was a little bit rushed on my part, so maybe I should have gone here first before coming back. I think it actually was perfect, but still. Alright, so now I have this. And if you want to, you can add on these 4 chunks. I won't do that for this video because I don't want to make people watch that extra part. So we've now traced the question. And like last time, we're going to have to relocate it again. Now, the nice thing is, since these lines still exist, you can always delete your image and then bring it right back. So you see where my cursor's at? That corner is the same as this inside corner. So if I pick up and move both of these, I should be able to grab it from this corner. Now you'll notice that I grab 2 things at once. I click inside the gray area. That way it'll choose my whole area. If this was separated, it would only choose a part of it. But since it's all one single shape, I can click there. And then I'll hold Shift and click on my second location. That way it chooses 2 at a time. If you ever accidentally choose something you didn't mean to, it also will deselect items if you're holding Shift. So here I am clicking while I'm holding Shift to select and then deselect them. I'll hit the letter M for move, and I'm going to pick it up from this endpoint, and I'm going to drop it right here. With this in place, I can elevate my question blocks. So I'm going to choose my push and pull tool. I'm going to bring this up, but then if I want this to be at the same height, I can't just eyeball it. And the other thing too is I push this up and down and up and down. I think it would be better if I was doing Command Z to bring it back to where it was flat before I just tried to tweak it a little bit. So here I'm going to click. Now you'll notice that I'm doing a click and a drag this time. You could have clicked and just let go. And then my second click is going to make sure it's on the face. I can grab a corner, but notice that I'm not grabbing a corner at the bottom. I'm grabbing a corner at the top so that my question mark is at the same height. And then on this outer border, I can now do that as well. I'm going to put optional. This would be on your own. Add the small squares in the corner. But what's not optional is a final cleanup / resave. So we're about to clean this up, and by clean it up, we're going to get rid of these other parts. So go ahead and save it as question block. And once it's done, go back to here and instead choose File, Save As. And we're going to call this space dash space at the end, capital REV, for revision, meaning this is a new and revised version of it. And we're going to do a capital B so that we can tell it apart from the original. So this would be like revision B. Click OK. Again, choose that same folder as before. Double click, single click, select. And then if I look in here, you'll see that it's refreshing. And so I have my original question block and revision B, and these are different files. So now I jump back here, and the reason I made different files is so that I could go in delete all this stuff, delete the picture, delete the other picture, make sure that it's nice and clean underneath. I'll zoom in, but I'm going to grab the whole thing by doing Command A, and then I'm going to hit the letter M for move, and from this endpoint I'm going to drag it and drop it at the origin. And now that I'm okay with this saving, I'm clicking Save. There's a whole lot to think about in this video. If it doesn't feel like it's making perfect sense, that's all right. Hopefully you were able to draw and go along as best you could. So this is done, and maybe it's time for your own project or a little extra practice. So that is up to you.